What up, IDS Mob? HarryWilmington here, and today we're going to be answering a question from somebody who wants to know how is it he's supposed to have a long-term relationship when right now he's used to having casual flings and being non-monogamous. And I want to get into this because I think that there are some things he brings up that I need to dispel in terms of the truth about being non-monogamous versus being monogamous, all right? So let's get into his question. He says, and this, by the way, this guy is 25 years old, so I get why he's having questions about this at this age, right? He says, I, 25-year-old male, am currently single by choice. For the past few years, I have had casual, short-term relationships, and that has worked well for me. Well, for this stage of your life, I'll say that, as you're trying to build yourself up and get more established in your career and your goals, then I could see how up to this point, maybe you haven't wanted something super duper serious. That said, men do get married at that age. My brother got married at 25, 26 or so. And so I don't want you to think that that's out of the norm to be at that age and want to consider possibly getting within a long-term partnership. It can happen and it can work out. Anyway, he says, however, I have recently been thinking about what my future will look like and I can't make sense of it. The idea of being monogamous, again, is unappealing. It's restrictive and unfulfilling. I'm going to come back to this point later because I really want to expand on that. He says, however, I still struggle to believe that someone would be willing to have a non-monogamous relationship with me later in life. Probably because I have never seen it happen outside of relationships that aren't serious. Well, of course, there are poly relationships and there are open marriages. There are some people, like a lot of people that make a lot of money, oftentimes make an agreement with their wives where it's like, hey, I love you. I'm bringing the money home to you. You're my number one. But if I'm off in Paris or France somewhere and you're not there and I meet somebody, I want to be able to do stuff. And hey, if I'm gone on these long meetings or whatnot, maybe you have somebody also. Like, those are conversations that can come up, but those are conversations you want to have in the dating phase because you don't want to surprise your now wife with that kind of information about you wanting to be with other people. So those all goes back to having the right conversations to see if the person that you're with is going to gel with what you're trying to do. Anyway, he says, worse still, despite my desire to be non-monogamous, and despite my current openness with casual partners, I can't imagine being comfortable with my partner in a committed relationship, also seeing other people. And that makes sense because I know you're thinking, you want to be able to take that option, but thinking about a woman potentially taking that option obviously is going to, it sounds seemingly hypocritical, but I get it because we've been taught that when men cheat, it's because they just needed a physical release and it's not necessarily an emotional connection. Whereas with women, to get to the point where they're willing to actually take on another man to go inside of them, that it means that they probably actually have more than just a physical need with that person, but also are building a relationship bond with them that can result in her leaving you. So I get why subconsciously or consciously you'd be threatened by the idea of that. And again, this goes to if what's good for you is not going to be good for her to do for you, then you might consider that might not be the best method to think about, all right? Anyway, he says, I don't know how to verbalize my concerns, so I wouldn't know how to approach this subject. I would appreciate any advice or resources to learn more about E&M, especially as it relates to long-term relationships and being a parent. So I can't speak to that because I'm not in the business of trying to necessarily be in a non-monogamous or open relationship with a woman if I'm getting married to them or whatnot, all right? But I do want to touch on this part where he says the idea of being monogamous, again, is unappealing because it's restrictive and unfulfilling. Now, this guy, he's a 25-year-old guy. And so he's looking at, well, the idea of being with somebody solo for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, it's going to be the same body all the time. It's going to be the same positions. It's going to be the same person I'm trying to do stuff with. It's going to get boring eventually, and I want a little bit of variety. Let me tell you something, all right? At 25, I understand how you have that viewpoint. I'm 41, all right? I've been through a few things. And what I have learned is this, is that for one, as you start to get older, your levels of testosterone are going to start to decrease bit by bit. And so the urgency you have right now of trying to bang a plethora of women, in my experience, is going to start to taper off. Now, for those of you guys that are watching this that are older and are still complete horn dogs and are still trying to bang 5 women a week or whatever like that, hey, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. But I'm saying from my experience, I find that the testosterone starts to lessen. And so your desire, when it happens, your desire for having to, let alone hook up constantly with the one person you're with, let alone with multiple people, it starts to lessen a bit. I've also found in my journey that as I was starting to concentrate more on goals and trying to get things accomplished, that takes away a bulk of my time. So now a good portion of my thinking power goes towards how can I make money and how can I fulfill the goals that I have for myself. And then there's still brain power left over for, and also what can I do to hook up with the woman? But it's like there are going to be other things that start to come into your life that become a more primary focus than whether or not you're getting a different woman in your bed, okay? Now, with that said, you mentioned the part about it being restrictive and unfulfilling. Well, let me tell you what's not so fulfilling, all right? Is the constant exercise of having to go out there and meet a brand new person and have the small talk about this and that and their likes and their dislikes and what they're into and their favorite color and what they like and yada, yada, yada. And then eventually doing enough things to whereby ideally date or outing number 3, you're hooking up with them, okay? That starts to become very, very tedious and unfulfilling in and of itself because ideally, and maybe I'm speaking as an introvert, but when you meet somebody, ideally you're trying to meet them because you want to really connect with them on a deeper level. And that deeper level connection is what's going to make you love them for more than just what they're bringing physically to the bed. But it's also what allows that hookup to feel a lot more special and meaningful. And if you're just trying to meet women to take them out a few times and then have a couple hookups and then push them to the wayside, you're going to miss out on what could potentially be the greatest thing of all, which is legitimately connecting with a woman enough to where you trust her, she trusts you, you can depend on each other, you get to have a buttload of experiences together, and yeah, you get to hook up a lot. Now, the other fear could possibly be that, we've heard a lot of stories about dudes that get into long-term relationships, and before they got married, they were hooking up left and right every single day with this person, and then they get married, and then all of a sudden, the wife starts slowing down and wanting to hook up, or, kids come into play, and now the wife's too tired to do stuff, you get too tired to do stuff, and next thing you know, you're doing it like once or twice a month, and then like once every 6 months, and then once a year. And this is not to say that does not happen, but what I am saying is that in terms of the overallness of that, I have seen in my own personal life that more often than not, if there is a deep enough connection there, if you're able to properly vet the person that you're going out with and have the conversation about your likes and dislikes and being able to show respect to this person, whatnot, then that can last years and years and years in terms of her animal attraction to you and your animal attraction to her. Usually I have found when hookups and stuff start to taper off, what's usually happening is either one or both of the people are starting to put in less work and time and or are starting to be more and more disrespectful of the person they're with. Because in a long-term relationship, it's very easy when you're in the beginning of a relationship to be nice and cordial to the person because you have all these butterflies, right? But then as time goes on, you're with the person day in and day out, you start not wanting to be so nice and you maybe don't have the same butterflies and you start talking to them any kind of way, and that can severely cut off, especially for women, that can cut off their ability to want to hook up with you. Or she could be doing the same to you, and all the things she's saying to you and treating you is making you want to taper off as well, all right? But ideally, you're a guy that's going to be respectful to whoever you end up with, to where she's going to continue to have the hots for you, you're going to continue to have the hots for her, and those things can last a lifetime. Hey, I talked about on this channel, my dad died in 1991. My parents got married in 1978. They were together, married for 13 years, and my mom to this day, 30-something odd years later, that is still the only guy that she's been with since my dad died. Like, hasn't dated anybody because that love that she had for him was just so strong. And she was like, I found the love of my life and I don't need to experience that again because I already experienced it and I loved him so much, all right? And that's beyond the grave. So I imagine if he had still been here, once me and my brother got out the house, they would have still been connecting in that way, So I don't want you to completely look negatively at long-term relationships or monogamous relationships, because the reality is that there are still ways within a monogamous relationship to keep things fresh, to keep things lively, whether it's bringing toys into the bedroom, whether it's reading the Kama Sutra, whether it's going to a sex retreat and learning different ways that you guys can connect in the bedroom. But it's always going to be the job to be able to reinvent yourself and learn new things, because you're thinking, I need all these new connections to make things feel fresh. And I got news for you. I've done that too. and you find over time that all girls have the same parts. You can only hit so many angles, and at some point, it's gonna all start to feel the same. So I say it because you're thinking you're gonna keep it lively with a new person, and yes, studies have shown that men typically get really excited when a new person comes into play, but that's because it's like, it's a new playground with the same rides. It'd be like, oh, I'm tired of going to Disneyland because I go there all the time, so now I'm going to Six Flags. But they both got roller coasters. They both got little characters walking around. It's a new theme park, but if I go to Six Flags enough times, I'm gonna be feeling the same way about that I would feel about Disneyland. Oh, it's all, I've been here enough times, yada, yada, yada. And so, but that's also why these parks continuously take away rides and add new rides in, because they recognize that the public's gonna need to try some new stuff within the confines of their park to make people wanna come back. So the same is true of a monogamous relationship. You gotta invent new things, you gotta try new things, you gotta bring new things into the fold. You can go back to some of the old classics and those things too, but going to a different person is not the answer to that, because you're gonna find over time, like I said, it starts to get really old of having to constantly meet new people and say the same stuff over and over in a get to know you person spiel. And that can be just as tedious and as annoying as potentially being with somebody long-term that you've built trust with and have experiences with and history with. And you can kind of look at each other and know what each other's saying without having to say it. Like, those are the benefits and positives that come with being in a monogamous long-term relationship, is that you get to start really getting to know somebody, and you get to know what they like in the bedroom, to where you can do the stuff that they like, which is some old stuff, but then add a twist to it that makes it feel fresh, But don't discount that completely. Again, at 25, it's very easy to be like, monogamy is so blah, 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 I'm boring, this and that. Again, at 41, I actually find it to be quite delightful. And I find that being able to, when you get into a relationship, when you connect with just that one person, it goes beyond just the bedroom. But again, all those other experiences that are tied into your lives make the bedroom experience like the icing on the cake, if you will. So hopefully this helps you guys out. But let me know your guys' thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments about monogamy versus non-monogamy versus like having a wide array of partners versus an open relationship. Love to hear your comments, so leave them down in the comment box below. Thanks for watching this particular video. If you need my help or want some one-on-one coaching, go to introvertdatingsuccess.com, click on the coaching tab. If you found this video to be helpful, click on the tip jar tab, leave a monetary thank you. And as always, go to the website for my ebooks, audiobooks, programs, and music albums, all designed to help you date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace.
You a high-earning, high-value, high-class man. You a high-earning, high-value, high-class man. You a high-earning, high-value, high-class man. You a high-class man. You a high-class man. You a high-earning, high-value, high-class man. You a high-earning, high-value, high-class man.